I would like to say a few words about the global warming alarmists, because I gladly remarked that I gladly stated that at last we have proper words for people who are expressing the view that whereas we all agree that global warming it's happening to some extent, or that the climate is changing. Everybody agrees about it, but we don't really agree. I think that the people, I don't know, elites, the electorates, they not really agree to what extent people are responsible for this. For instance, rising level of the CO2 in the atmosphere and so on. So we have proper names for the both sides now. Those proper names are global warming alarmists, or just simply alarmists, and the skeptics. The skeptics are, of course, the skeptics are, of course, there are some very radical skeptics who would agree, who would say that we have no idea if maybe if the global climate is really getting warmer. But this is the margin of those groups. Most of the skeptics are skeptical really about the human role in this process, and we also can observe that there are some quarrels also how to address this, even if people are responsible, how to address this problem. For instance, Mr. Lomborg, who is not from the Copenhagen Institute of Climatology, is not saying that there is not global warming going on. He says it is, but for instance the Paris Accord wouldn't do, for instance, much for to prevent this situation from spreading, from getting worse. And he is right about it, because it would cause spending of trillions of $100 trillion in the whole during the whole 21st century, and reduce just like 0.3 degrees Fahrenheit of the global temperature, I think. So wouldn't really do much, and those huge amounts of money should be spent for instance, for curing the curable but still very popular, unfortunately, diseases in the third world, for instance. And he's totally right about it. So, but returning to the global warming alarmists, there are also many groups. In the previous decades, they were predicting that Venice would be underwater, just like now, and clearly we see that Venice is not yet underwater. So, but they then supposedly corrected their calculations and so on. But what we really see is, I don't want to talk about which side is really right, and maybe there are not two sides in all this, maybe there are more, and there is also a political side. For instance, what Japan and Europe were doing was basically keeping their welfare system, which is causing the decrease of the growth of GDP per annum, in comparison to more not so welfare system oriented economies, like on one side, for instance, America, United States, and on the other side the more autocratic regimes like Russia and China and so on. They wanted to slow down their economics, so they wanted them to accept the Paris Accord, and China would reluctantly sign it, because they were promised that they can pollute some more in the nearest decades. So for them it was like slowing down the competitors, so slowing down the United States. Of course, Mr. Trump and his administration was totally aware of this scheme and didn't sign this agreement. And we see that the interest of the politicians for this